Okay, so you're in your project now, and before we start to look at the various assets that you need for your particle beam that we're going to use as the laser, we need to make sure, I mentioned this last session, I forgot to show you the additional nodes that you need to make sure that the player is in the right location so it's not standing on the floor. So if we go to the VR pawn and we open it up, and you can see we've got three sections here. We've got this section which makes us move with the input axis movement. We've got this section which does the rotation, and the one that I forgot to show you is this one, which is event begin play, and it's very important, this node, because it sets the tracking origin to the floor. Okay, so just make sure that you've got that inside the pawn. If you were there the last session, you probably would have done that, but just in case you missed that session. Okay, so if we go back to the contents folder, if we go into the beam particle folder, which I've already created, the two things that we need for the particle system is the particle system material and also the particle system itself. So create yourself a folder and call it laser beam, and open that up, and we're going to create a particle system. So you can find that in the it should show you, it should say particle system. So you select that, we'll call it beam particle. Okay, and if you open that up, this is the particle system. It's quite a complex interface. There's lots going on, but what we're going to do, we're going to be creating a beam particle which effectively stretches a material between 2 points. Okay, so we can close that down there. Back to here. So obviously save that. And obviously we need to create a material, so we'll create a new material and we'll call it beam mat. Okay, so they're the two things that you need at the moment for that. So we go back to content, and I'll just run you through the beam particle. Okay, so we go to beam particle. Let's look at the material itself. And I'll just show it displays as a flat plane, and as you can see, we've got this beam with this fading off with an alpha channel, and that's what's going to be used for the laser. So if we look through how it's constructed, one of the things that you're going to need is this thing called a particle color node. Okay, so let's go and make that. I'll just load up the blank one that we did before. Okay, so we're in the beam particle. Select the first node and make sure it's translucent, because you want it to be transparent. So I'll just save that. And obviously I'll be flicking between the one that I've created and the one that we're working on. So translucent. Okay. So first of all, we need to create the particle color node. That's easy. So right click. So particle color. you can see there in particles, you see particle color node, so it's like that. Okay, now what this is going to do is this is going to directly communicate with the particle system, and in the particle system we can set the color of the laser beam, which is going to be red in our instance. Obviously when you're doing use, you might want to change the color of it. Okay, so we need a texture coordinate node. So texture coordinates. There we go. So I'll put that there. And all that does, that controls how the texture is applied to the particle. And then we've got this mask. So go mask. That's a component mask. And just make sure that just the green is set. This just, what that does is it just masks a certain direction on the mapping of the object. So I'll keep saving that. Let's go back to green. And we also need to create a sine node, and what that does is that will create that gradient effect. So here we go here. Sine node. Okay. And obviously I'll flick through this, I'll make through it. So we need a power of 3. So power, just type in power and just make sure that's a power of 3 in a constant exponent. Okay, as you can see, I'm building up the nodes that we need. And we need a multiplier. In fact, we need 2 multipliers, so that's easy to do. So type in multiply. And we'll just duplicate that. Duplicate it. There we go. So we've got 2 of those. And okay, so we've got all the bits that we need, and we're going to pipe these into effectively the emissive color and the opacity. The emissive color, what that will do is it will override any lighting that's on the beam itself. So obviously there'll be no shadows that are being cast on it, so it will stand out. And the opacity, that will create this linear opacity that you'll get this effect where it blends off to transparency. Okay. So we'll go through that process now. So pump that into there. That goes into a multiplier. That's the transparency. And then the power of 3 goes into there. We'll also pump that into the opacity setting. That can go into the emissive color. Don't make a mistake and put it into the base color because we don't want it in there. So yeah, G goes into there. Goes into there. Okay. As you can see, and if you click on that, you can actually see what's happening. Okay. Let's just make sure that's all working. Yeah, multiplier. Oh, we've got one more multiplier. So I'll just duplicate that one. And this time it's only half the value, 0.5. So it just changes the intensity of that. Go back. Yeah, just pumps that into there. So from the mask, put that into there. Okay. Make sure that we're doing this right. Let's break that. And there's our final one now. So if I just position that in there, so you can see what's happening. Okay, so the particle color is determined by the particle system. These multipliers just times the value by a certain amount. Let's just make sure does it multiply? Yeah. Oh, we're not. Yeah, that's just used to pump from the power of x into the power of x into that one. That's it. It multiplies it. Okay. Effectively, what's happening is the particle color goes into the emissive color, and the opacity is its shape of where the transparent areas are is determined by the mathematical functions, and they go into there. So that's effectively the material for the particle system. Make sure that it's all set up. Yep. Okay. Now there's one last thing that we need to do. There's a usage list, and we need to make sure that the material is used for the beam trails. Okay, so that's easy to do. Go down here, scroll down, used in, you can find it, beam trails, and just save that. Okay, so that's completed. Okay, so in the next video we'll have a look at how we set up the particle system.